Hello, everyone. You are at the Neo and Content Panda, Mastering the Matrix of New Hire Onboarding. You know SharePoint, right? Webinar hosted by Content Panda. And we're going to get started. And Simeon, Kathy and I'm Heather Newman. We'll be talking about new employee orientation as well as SharePoint and user adoption planning with you. And I'm going to go through a little bit of housekeeping. If you're looking for more information on our company, Content Panda, our website is www.contentpanda.com. If you would like to be alerted about upcoming webinars or events that we are attending in person, or be alerted when we post blogs, we do a lot around Office 365, SharePoint on-prem and end-user adoption, change management, new hires, all that sorts of things. You can go to our website and underneath the news function, we have a newsletter sign-up so that you can sign up for that. We're pretty big social media fans, and so we're on all the usual suspect social media areas. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, all that sort of thing. If you are a Twitter person, you can use the hashtag ContentPandaWebinar if you'd like to tweet something out about what we're talking about today. So and we do a lot around, we obviously work a lot on Office 365 and SharePoint, but we also love pandas. So, you know, you'll see a Friday Fun Day Panda video from us every once in a while as well. So on the next slide, I wanted to let you know that we have a book that we contributed to. So it's called Improve It, and it's a collection of essays on using analytics to accomplish more with SharePoint and some tips and tricks around end-user adoption. It's a great group of Office 365 and SharePoint influencers and MVPs. It published last year in May during the Ignite conference in Chicago. That's a picture from it there. Kind of point of fact that's kind of fun is that myself and Jason on the end were photoshopped in later because we missed the original picture, so that's kind of fun. You can get a copy of it at the link below from Web Trends, who helped publish it, and then it's also available on Amazon. So with that, I'm going to let Simeon introduce himself to you, and then I'll do a little intro, and then we'll jump into our talk about Neo. So Simeon, go right ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Simeon Kathy. I'm the CEO of Content Panda. A little bit about myself. I was on the original SharePoint team at Microsoft back when there was about 35 of us, and we were just beginning to really start prototyping what we thought SharePoint could be. We didn't know it was going to be called SharePoint at the time, but the marketing team came up with that, and now it's, believe it or not, I'll hear people talking about it in a store or on the bus. So it was great to be a part of that original team and see it grow. As I left Microsoft and started doing consulting work to see how people actually really use SharePoint, I contributed to the SharePoint Bible, which was a lot of work. I'm glad I did it. It was really great to take all of our thoughts and all of our learning and put it into a book. And while I was doing that, I was also raising my lovely daughter. You'll see on the bottom left there. And then that's me in the bottom middle presenting. I do a lot of traveling and go to SharePoint conferences and present on user adoption and some of the finer points, migration, and other things for Office 365 and SharePoint. I recently moved to Maui, where I find myself, well, busily running a startup, Content Panda, and learning the finer points of sailing my new boat out here and surfing. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Simeon. So I'm Heather Newman. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and a co-founder of Content Panda along with Simeon. I moved back to Seattle in 1998. I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm actually talking to you from Chicago today. But I moved back to Seattle in 1998, started working in technology. 2001, I was also very fortunate to be on the original SharePoint team on the marketing side, and that's where I met Simeon back in Building 25. Pretty much for about a decade there, 2001 to 2009, any SharePoint Office meeting, event, dinner, trade show, or party that was produced by Microsoft, I either was running or had some sort of a hand in. My company, Creative Maven, produced thousands of events and marketing campaigns for Microsoft, and it was a really fun time. I then became SVP of Global Marketing for AvePoint. I was CMO for Knowledge Lake for a while, so I sort of jumped into more of a C-level bent to my career, and then I sort of moved that back into running a startup with Simeon, running Content Panda, and also doing marketing consulting on the C-level for technology companies. So I got a lot going on most of the time. I chair Women in Technology community site on the itunity.com, and so I'm always looking for women authors and women's voices to tell their stories about how they got started in IT. And so I'm usually, if any of you ladies, let's see, are on the call, I might be reaching out and saying hello, Ashley and Carolyn and Tarina, to see if you want to participate. We love women in technology talking about their stories. I'm also part of the CMO club. I go recruiting chief marketing officers to bring them into a club where we network and talk about our CEOs and all that sort of thing together. I live in Sonoma County when I'm home in wine country in a little town called Sebastopol. I have a dog named Pierre, who's very sweet, in Catahoula, and I have a husband named Jim, who's in the arts, and we've been married about 20 years. So that's me. So with that, I'm going to launch into our actual presentation about new employee orientation. So kind of, as I said, I've been a chief marketing officer for about 4 years now for companies of different sizes. And in that role, I think, one of the big things is being involved cross-divisionally with human resources and IT to build your NEO, your new employee orientation. Marketing, hopefully, and your organization owns brand, owns message, and really should be working hand in hand with HR to build a successful NEO. That really should start with the brand, that you create to attract people who are the right fit for your company's overall goals. So for me, and I've done a bit of research on this, when I was at AvePoint, we had about 1,400 folks, and we did tons of new hire training and orientations all the time, and I was very involved with a lot of that. And the thing is that I think you all probably know this, but it's definitely a key point is, really starting. The orientation process starts before a candidate comes in and is hired, right? It's about your culture and what's going on in your workplace, and making sure that a lot of the times your career section of your website, sometimes they're really terrible, and it's really important that it's sort of like that first impression, right? So before anybody even comes to an actual interview, they're looking and seeing what kind of culture you have, and looking and seeing about what kind of information you're putting up. Best foot forward is the time for, getting all the information that you need on that website. So, and also it allows somebody to do their homework. I think that's really important too, is that if you're not putting a ton of information up there, then somebody can't do their homework about the company and be informed when they come in for the actual job interview. So whether you're working at a startup or a Fortune 500 company, we kind of think there's some important tips and tricks and maybe some fun new things to bring to the table to talk about NEO. The 4 items listed here are things that either I've seen or I've used myself that may hopefully spark some ideas for you around building a NEO, or maybe giving your current onboarding a little something new. So the 100 Days of Happiness comes from a company that made 100 small choices for their team, and actually a kid who started this, and a lot of companies have now actually been adopting it or have adopted it in some way into their NEOs. I'll talk a little bit about that. Values, it's a nod to Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. If you haven't done this work at your company, it's really, really awesome, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on that slide. Leadership and mentorship, that's pretty huge, top down. You really have to have senior leadership involved. CEOs and C-levels being involved in your NEO is really super important. I like knowing who I'm working for. When I buy something, I like knowing who's running the ship. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then lastly, tech and productivity. This is where we'll talk a little bit about training and brown bags, and also where we see Content Panda and what we bring to the table fitting into a new hire process, and really making that technology and productivity piece even more powerful, because that's a place where some things can fall down sometimes. You get everybody through, they know where the pens are, they can go fill out all the paperwork, and then they go back the next day to their desk and they're like, oh, I'm stuck already, right? And that's not the way you want your new hires to start. So I'll bust into the 100 Days of Happiness next. So there's a kid named Dmitry, I think it's Goblanichi, who was born in the Ukraine. He now lives in Switzerland, and he kind of thought, he did a challenge with himself, and he thought it would be more effective if he made it public. So he would feel that social pressure from friends and family. So he created a very simple hashtag. It was hashtag 100 happy days. And then late last year, he took to his Instagram account and he posted one picture a day of something that made him happy, from food, travel, friends, loved ones. And it has gone bananas. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's really interesting and cool. And I did some more research about it, and I found that there's companies that have been doing something like it, or have adopted it into their Neo. And the one company was called Edgewood Tool and Manufacturing. They basically said that every manager who hired a new employee was absolutely required to write a 120-day orientation for the new employee. So it was part of the manager's job to actually write the orientation and work with HR to make sure that they were, implementing it from their perspective, which I thought was really great. And I think something like this is really interesting. 100 days of a Neo. What's one action every day that you could put in front of somebody to get them connected, right? Meet with a director, call on a customer, lunch with a CEO. Like, what are those simple actions, 30 minutes daily, that you could bring into a Neo and really start somebody off in their first 90 or 100 days? So this was pretty cool, and I think if you get a chance to check out 100 Happy Days online, it's really inspiring and very cool. Okay, so next is, vision, values, culture. What's your why? There was a blog by a gal, Nacy Carson, and I've read this book. Simeon's read it. We both really like this book, and there's a TED Talk. Simeon showed me his TED Talk. There's a great one with him that talks all about starting with why. And I think it's kind of, the most successful companies out there really understand that customers need to be inspired, right, in order to purchase a product. That's what we do in marketing. We're telling stories. And if people can't viscerally can I connect with the company's mission or vision, people, what Simon Sinek says is that, if people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think it's really true for an effective onboarding as well. If you want your new hires to transition from an employee to sort of that dedicated disciple, they need to really connect with the why of the company. So I don't know, I think it's our responsibility as marketers or human resources to really make sure that the mission, the vision, the values, all of that, the reason for the existence, not just the what, the mechanics and the products and the services, but the why. Like, why does the company exist? Why are you doing what you do every day? So if you haven't checked this out, I think it's a really great place to start, or a place to, bring the book in and have, the other C-levels that you work with, or the other directors that you work with, the IT director or HR or marketing or whoever, that trifecta who actually does this stuff, take a look at the book and read it with you. So I like that. The next slide, we talk a little bit about leadership and mentorship. I think, the more personal elements of the process where you're engaging, new employees, I think you give them the ability to identify their own personal growth with the overall success of an organization. There was I was doing some research about this, and there's a CEO, Ari Weinzweig, who's got a great name, who works for Zingerman's Community of Businesses, which is a group of specialty food in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm from Michigan, and so I love Zingerman's. It's one of those where you can buy a box of awesome food and send it to somebody for a holiday gift. He actually is the CEO, and he still personally teaches an orientation class to the new staffers. So, taking the time to teach that orientation, you've got that really clear message that comes across that, what we value, and we value the new hires so highly that the head of the company is willing to sit with them to go over things, right? So that's really important. And another great book and another interesting person out there in the world right now, Mr. Tony Shaw from Zappos, is amazing, and I've gotten to see him speak a couple of different times. And this one is a little, I don't know, Zappos is definitely, I think, pushing foreground on a lot of this stuff. So you're seeing the delivering of happiness there in the photo. I think it's really interesting. They had a really weighty kind of orientation at Zappos. It was really time consuming. And the company originally had designed a 2-week indoctrination to its very fun culture. And now it's actually evolved into a 4-week affair. And funnily enough, after the first week, once you've gone through this, Zappos actually offers a buyout of 1 month's salary to new employees who don't feel the vibe or who don't like what they're doing, which I think is kind of a fascinating throwdown, if you will, for a company that's really trying to sort of change and pioneer things. Um, Also, anyone who shows up late for the daily 7 a.m. start is fired on the spot, which is kind of interesting. And then new employees must pass a final exam, and they have to answer at least 90% of the questions correctly or they're out. So also the standard orientation there includes a mandatory 2-week telephone training, even for jobs without an actual customer service component, which, Zappos is all online and on the phone. So, I think, and Tony, I know he also comes in and does the training as well and is getting in there. So I feel like, really making sure your senior management is a part of it. And then I think absent managers equal absent employees. So something to think about. And checking out his book, I think, is a really interesting one as well. Yeah, we can flip the slides. And that kind of leads me, those are kind of three or sort of books and some things that maybe I think are a little different. They're not the standard fare as far as new hire training, and maybe give you some inspiration to bring something a little bit new in. I think there's lots of wonderful standard things that you're probably already doing, but these were sort of new, maybe some new ideas to bring into the mix. And on the technology and productivity front, which is near and dear to our hearts because we've lived and breathed in sort of SharePoint land and Microsoft land for a long time. People are handed their laptop or their desktop at their cubicle, and they're expected to really just jump in and start. I found when, we had new hires, or even when I was interviewing people, most people are up on Microsoft Office or, Google Docs and that kind of thing, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. But, specifically for Office 365 and SharePoint, you've got that technology deployed in over 80% of the enterprises in the world, right? So most people say they know SharePoint, but most of the time they're really not up on the way a business is either customized or is using it. And training's pretty expensive, and most people forget. And after you've brought people through all of the above, like all the great, new hire training and the talks, and you've had your CEO, talk to them, and you're doing 100 days of happiness, and you've, showed your values and your vision and your why, and you've done all this awesome work. They know where the office supplies are and all that sort of thing. You get them there, and it's, really understanding, that this last piece, this technology productivity, can completely elongate and unravel all the good onboarding that has happened. So, and I was looking for a quote or, to support this, and this John Sullivan, who's a former talent officer for Agilent, and he's also a professor at San Francisco State, was saying he said, it's really about calculating the cost of hiring new workers to the business. Companies need new hires to be productive, and at a small company especially, every employee counts, right? So we kind of want to look at how your company can set up that onboarding process to shorten the learning curve. And also, one other piece about this is really making sure that someone is accountable, primarily some sort of IT or line manager who understands the cost savings to the business if a new employee gets up to speed quicker. So you want managers to be really aware that you're measuring productivity through metrics, making sure employees are actually becoming productive, and if not, figuring out why and what's going wrong, so that you're continually fine-tuning and tweaking how you onboard employees so that you're maximizing the benefits of the process and that person. So we think adoption of technology is one of the biggest impediments to a new hire being able to be productive day one. And so one of the reasons, sharing a bunch of new ideas with you about this, but also showing you maybe a new way of supporting the training and wonderful things that you're doing by using a new way of thinking about help and training and how you give it to someone inside of SharePoint and Office 365. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Simeon for a minute so he can share some facts and some information with you about how people learn and training, and then we're going to show you a demo of Content Panda and how it would work with your new hire training. So Simeon, I'll let you take over.
Awesome, thanks. Thanks, Heather.
Mm-hmm.
So all these really great ideas about getting people excited about your business, making them feel comfortable, understanding why your business exists, why they're important to the business, how the executive level is, really cares about human capital and the people working for the company. These are all really great things. Now, kind of pulling all that stuff together and putting it into SharePoint is sort of a natural. If you already have SharePoint, it's kind of a natural place to do that, just because it's so easy to edit content and update content and have sort of that portal for people to go and find that information. Now SharePoint has a lot of power, a lot of capability, but it's still like any new technology. When somebody goes through the transition and change from one platform to another or just a brand new platform, there's always that sort of gap, that knowledge gap. So we looked at SharePoint and some of the problems we've seen out there when we're implementing or we're doing consulting or even setting up our own SharePoint. And so we decided, we think this can be different. We think it can be better. And some of the challenges that come up this is some other research we've done that really shows where the real challenge is to getting people onboarded and using the technology and becoming productive. Number one, businesses, this is all shown from research, by the way, 52% of organizations put people in front of technology, specifically in this research, SharePoint, without any training. So new employees or even existing employees find themselves sitting in front of this big toolbox and platform without any training. This is one of the biggest problems with adoption. People will just go right back to using email if they don't know how to use it. 70% is the percentage of knowledge that students lose. So even if you send people off in your new employee orientation to some pre-built training, if they don't use that knowledge hands-on within 24 hours, cognitive brain studies show that they lose up to 70% of that knowledge. And so imagine if somebody doesn't use the tools for weeks or even months. Probably very little is still in their brain. And since they lose that knowledge, and maybe they didn't have training, the next thing they do is they find themselves in front of technology and doing searching for information, searching YouTube, getting stuck watching cat videos because they got distracted. Now this metric or this statistic here says 2.5 hours is the average time for a knowledge worker to be spending each day just looking for information. That's not all SharePoint, but you can imagine that a lot of that is, learning how to use the tools that are right there in front of them. So with all of these challenges in rolling out a platform, SharePoint being one of them, zero, and this is one of the most important, I think, statistics, is the number of people who like to ask for help. And we should probably put quotes around like. So nobody likes to go ask for help, especially if they're a new employee and there's all this pressure they put on themselves to perform and to be it's kind of a scary experience for a new hire. So with that, we think that this should be a much better experience. So I'm going to walk through a demo that we've put together. We'll show you what your HR and onboarding SharePoint site could look like, and how you can augment that with with our product, Content Panda. We built it for Office 365 and for SharePoint 2013 and 2016 coming up soon. We'll show you a demo today. If you want to see a more specific demo and have more of a discussion, feel free to go on our website and schedule a demo. We've got a little app up there where you can see our free busy time and pick a time that works for you to go a little deeper. So we're going to do a quick demo, just kind of a big overview. I'm going to walk through a few kind of key use cases that I think we can map pretty intuitively to the HR and new employee process. I'm going to play two different roles. I'm going to start out as an HR person who's already working for our company, who wants to make sure that the new employee onboarding is a successful and a nice experience. So let's see here. I'm going to flip over to my browser, and this is our Office 365 portal. So we've got kind of our home page. If you look at the top navigation here, we have human resources, our sales and marketing site, our legal portal, some projects that are going along, our IT site, and some governance there. If you've been playing with SharePoint or you've been researching SharePoint and thinking about deploying, or you've already deployed, you'll see out on the web a lot of information about governance and about training and about how to have a good user experience. So when you learn about why it's important to invest in some of those things, the next challenge is how do you make sure that that investment is put right in front of those end users, right where they need it and right when they need it. All right, so I'm the HR representative. my area on this SharePoint site is in human resources. This is where I kind of control the experience for existing employees, but also for new employees. Oop, I didn't click my mouse hard enough. There we go. So this is my HR portal. I've tried to kind of design it to make it, easy to access information. We've got some big buttons here. Employee benefits. That's one of the #1 things that our employees go look for. Somebody's sick, or they want to find out about, or they want to, find out how much time they have off, things like that. Some best practices, ergonomics, how we support our employees, new employee orientation area, and one of the biggies is, gosh, how are my employees going to request time off and then get that approved so that we can make that a good experience? Nobody likes, to again ask for time off and not know for sure if they have time off. So the first place I want to go is my new employee orientation page, and I've taken some time to make sure that we followed some of the best practices. We've got our executive here, Mr. Gates, who's running our company, and he's got a nice message saying, hey, our new employees and our employees are our biggest asset. And here's the goals of the company, here's why we're here, and here's how that's evolving, so that the new employee can really feel like they're part of the process. Over on the right, we've got some links to human resources services, key contacts every employee needs, IT department, if somebody has some issues, company organization chart, etc. And then we've got some form templates. Every new employee needs to fill out some forms. Well, as the HR person for my organization, I want to make sure that when they do fill out these forms, they follow some really specific process or email it to the right person. So what I want to do is show you how with Content Panda we can get some helpful information right here in this section. So let me go. I'm going to go into edit mode. Well, I better spell it right. And this takes Content Panda. You guys can see this little panda over here on the right. And I'm going to put it into edit mode. Now the panda on the right should show up in orange. Now as a content manager for Content Panda, I can start creating and managing content. The first thing I'm going to do is, I see that there's other content on the page that has pandas all over the place, but I want to get some really specific content right in here. So I just hover my mouse around until the section that I want turns orange, and then I right click. I'm going to put in here, let's see here, email forms, or let's call this forms process. And I want this to I only want to tag this library. So I'm going to put it in my HR site, the URL path. So I copy that, and I'm just going to put that in my path limiter. And I'm going to say, please click the link below to email HR your forms. Now, I should probably put something else in here, like, please print the form, fill the form out, and other things. But for demo purposes, I'm just going to keep it fairly simple here. Okay, so I'm saving that. Now I have these new tabs on my editor interface. Now what I want to do is I want to just make it easy so that when people click this link, it just opens up an email directly to HR. So we'll say we're going to email, click to email HR. And the URL here is going to be mail to HR at contentpanda.com. So again, really simple. We're just going to have it be a forms process, and off we go. All right, so now when I refresh the page, I can see there should be an orange panda here that lights up this particular section. And so my forms are now highlighted, and I can go back in here at any time and I can edit the settings for this particular Content Panda item. All right, let's move on. Let's go into the legal site. Now, for this particular employee that we're hiring and onboarding, this is a paralegal who's going to help us with some of our legal paperwork and bookkeeping, that sort of thing. Now, our law firm, who's assisted us in putting this together, has some really specific requirements for uploading documents. They want to make sure that documents put into these specific folders, even though from a SharePoint perspective, maybe this isn't a best practice and we should use metadata, our legal team is really specific about what they need. They want files converted to PDF before they're uploaded, and they want to use really specific file naming conventions. So again, I'm going to go in and add some content here to help out new employees who, this new paralegal or new paralegals who come in here and need to upload documents. So again, I'm just going to highlight this section. When I right-click on the mouse, I get a new dialog. We're going to call this Legal Docs. And please follow our policies for file naming and converting to PDF. All right, my keyboard is making a lot of noise over here. Sorry for if it's a little bit loud. Okay, so I'm just going to save this one here. Now I do want to add a link. And over on our IT governance site, we've taken some time to put together some of these policies. When you look at doing governance, putting together a committee, figuring out the best way to present tools, SharePoint, and other platforms to employees, it's a great way to think about doing that is instead of putting it into a 80-page document, just maybe put it into a wiki library into some pages. So here's an example of that. Here's our file naming recommendations. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to add a link and do file naming policy. And we'll save that. Now another thing that's very helpful are videos for folks. So let's go into YouTube here. And since we want to convert to PDF all these documents because of our legal requirements, we'll go look for a video that addresses that. Now this could be any video service. It could be your own internal video system. You could link to your own knowledge base. You could use other video sharing and streaming services as well, as long as you can embed. We're just using YouTube because there's a lot of great information out there. Now I'm going to change the size of this video because I'll show you. You'll see why in a little bit. I'm going to make it smaller, and I'm going to copy. Click Add Video. We're going to say Convert to PDF and save. Okay, so now you've seen how I'm adding content. I want to show you as a new employee what this experience can be like. I've just done a little bit of work with Content Panda to make it easier, or what I think is easier for a new employee. So let's go to, I'm going to switch my role in this demo to that new employee. I've been told with my my new hire packet, hey, go to our portal up in Office 365, and for that first 100 days, this is the most important spot you should know. This is an area where you're going to find a lot of great helpful tips for your new employee experience. So I've also been told as a new employee that I need to go fill out some forms, and if I have any questions anywhere inside of our corporate intranet, to just go click on the Panda. So I see that there's some, a nice message to me and some links and some forms. I know I got to fill these out. And if I look over here at the Panda, there's a number 9 under it. That tells me that there's 9 items on this page that have help content available. So when I click on that, it lights up those items on the page, and it looks like I tagged this twice. So as I was practicing before this, actually that's our legal one. And this one here is the one I added earlier. Now I'm going to go fix this for you guys because I messed up. I forgot to put a path limiter on this. This is only going to be for the legal site. So I'm going to add this. I'm going to hit save, and that's saved. Now let me refresh this page, and hopefully I'll get rid of one of those pandas and just show the one for the form templates. Okay, so to turn Content Panda on and off, all I got to do is click on the number here, or I can click on the panda's face and I can turn it on and off right here as well. Okay, so the content we added a little bit earlier for new employees. As a new employee, I can tap on a mobile device or a touch-enabled device, or click on the Panda, and I can see, okay, here's our forms process. Please click the link below to email HR forms. So I click here to email. That's going to open up Outlook, and it's going to get me prepared to send that email and my new forms off to the HR department. So some helpful inline content right there. Now, I can leave Content Panda on if I want, and go from site to site, and it'll always highlight stuff, or I can turn it off. The cool thing about this is SharePoint still works. So we have, if I need to go add a new document or I need to do any other sort of thing in SharePoint, the SharePoint interface, even with Content Panda turned on, is still active. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it off anyway. Now I'm a paralegal. I'm new to the company. I'm going to go into the legal site because I know I have to do some legal processing, and the result of some projects that are going on, the result will be legal content that we'll need to put in some of these libraries or these folders within this library. Now, I was told that I need to follow specific policies. So again, I'll turn on Content Panda. This corporate legal documents library lights up, and here's the legal docs. Please follow our policies. When I click File Naming Policy, this opens up in a new tab, so I can go read about the policy for file naming. And when I close the tab, I'm right back at SharePoint. And it also says, please convert to PDF. So I can watch this video without any advertisements right here in this interface. And if I want to, I can go ahead and go full screen and watch this. And when I'm done, I'm right back here. And now I know how to convert documents, I know how to name them, and I can put them in the appropriate libraries. One more use case I want to show you that's sort of that end user trying to get something done. Let's go back to HR. And now that I've been working for the company for a little while, I want to request some time off. So I click Request Time Off. Now, that's a pretty simple process in most organizations. The title would be maybe Simeon's vacation. I can put in the location, maybe a description. But when I get down to here and I look at these acronyms, one of the most challenging things as a new employee is I don't understand these darn acronyms. So again, in a form situation like this, we can go click and turn on the Panda. And looks like there's a vacation policy here. And here there's a link that shows me side by side what these things mean. So I can go through and look, oh, PTO is personal time off, etc. Make the right choice and move on. Okay, now that I'm sort of up to speed, I get assigned as a new employee to a project. So let's just dive into a project real quick. Now I've kind of showed you how we can add content and bring our business processes and information and best practices and governance in line for end users. Now I want to show you how just across SharePoint as a platform, how we can make any SharePoint user more productive. So out of the box, you don't have to add any content. You can just install Content Panda, and it comes with thousands of videos and topics that are scattered throughout SharePoint. So no matter what page you're on, you can see how many topics are available. Again, in this case, on this project site, there are 14. So I'm going to turn on Content Panda. We can see all these different features light up. For example, what is sync? This is kind of cool. Let's see what that does. So this has got a link to some training material, some search results from Bing, because we passed in some parameters. I can go learn how to search for things. That's one of the challenges for somebody who's new to a platform is, well, okay, I don't even know what to search for. Well, we help the user. So if they click on search results, they can see what we searched for. And maybe they're a developer or they're somebody in IT and they want to know more about the API. Let's just click API. So we get, for people who don't quite know what to search for or who would waste a bunch of time searching, we give them a nice jump start. The other thing we do is we have an entire SharePoint learning system on the back end. So when a user clicks on anything with a plus next to it, that's custom-built content specifically for SharePoint and Office 365. And every time Microsoft rolls out a new feature, we jump in, create the content, and plug it right into this system. So it's always up to date. And in fact, we're on the Microsoft partner program where we get to see changes to Office 365 and SharePoint before your end users do. Now, I went and clicked directly from this link right into this learning system. Now there's thousands of videos and items here, but it takes the user directly to the topic. So I can see step by step. Here's the 6 steps on how to sync. I can see a little more details if I want to understand a little bit more about it. And I can also watch a video here. So all these videos are little bite-sized videos. Instead of having to go watch an entire series, here's a 1 minute, 13-second video that shows how to sync a library to my local file system so I can work with files offline. So really cool. And then in addition to that, there's computer-based training, which has modules, quizzes, keeps track of where you are in your learning path. So this is a complete learning tool for somebody who has time. Now, or wants to become kind of that power user. And you may want to, in your employee orientation, point people to it so that they can go in and on their own do self-service training. Now, this is way better than sending somebody off to training where first of all, you're losing productivity because they're outside of the business and focused on training. And it's not very efficient because when they come back, if they don't use that information, which was just fired at them like a fire hose, then they lose a majority of it. So right at their fingertips, right where they need it, good training content. Now, as a new SharePoint user and some new features around project management, again, I can go learn about project management. I've added a couple of videos here that show how to use SharePoint for project management. And even more importantly, if I'm the new project owner, typically I get handed a new SharePoint site. Somebody says, hey, here is the place for you to go. Now, one of the most important things when it comes to collaboration is figuring out who you need to be working with the right amount of access to your site. So without even turning Content Panda off, I'm just going to go to Site Settings, and which is one of the least intuitive screens on SharePoint. And you can see here there's 42 help items that help that user who may be new to SharePoint or hasn't used it in a while access to all those best practices, videos, and gets them up to speed immediately without wasting a bunch of time. Now, I can hear somebody right now asking, well, can I turn some of that off? And I want to show you that these blue pandas, this is out-of-the-box content that just comes when you install Content Panda on SharePoint or Office 365. So it comes with a whole smattering of great content. If you want to override that content, you just click the override button, and that makes the Panda green, and you have full access to all of this stuff. So you can rename these to whatever you want, to whatever maybe your lexicon is. You can modify these. We can turn them off too. So let's take this one here. Let's say we don't want to teach people how to update the site logo. It's just not something we want to do in our organization. We can just unpublish and click save. And that makes the icon turn up with a little stop sign, do not enter sign. So it just shows you that there is content there and you can modify it, but it's not published to end users. All right, so that's sort of the breadth of our demo. We'll get back to the slides for a moment. So we have done a bunch of research, a lot of thinking about, and working with a lot of end users to really understand what are the barriers to getting the most out of technology and specifically your SharePoint investment. In the context of new employee orientation, I think there's a great opportunity to really get employees off the ground and flying in the company very quickly. This is a really great number. 0 is the number of people who complain about having the information they want, where and when they need it. All right, so Heather, what else do we have on our agenda for this webinar?
We now have time for Q&A. So yeah, we can open it up to see if folks have any questions about Content Panda or Neo or anything really that they want to ask. So let me see if we've got in here. One question we had was about Content Panda works in a hybrid model.
Oh, the question is, does Content Panda work in the hybrid?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. So our service is a cloud service, and you can plug it into your on-premise SharePoint. You can plug it into your Office 365 SharePoint or your privately hosted SharePoint in a private cloud. So yes, we fully support the hybrid deployments.
Awesome. That's great. And let's see, anyone else have any other questions in here? Yes, we're going to record it, and yes, you will get a link to it later. Absolutely. Yep. So you can share it with your HR folks if you like. That would be great. Terrific. And yes, we do have, like Simeon said, yeah, you can get a deeper demo on our site by requesting 30 minutes with us. We've got a handy dandy little scheduler up there, so if you're looking for that, you can definitely go up and look to schedule a demo, request a trial, get a quote, that sort of thing as well. And we will, I should announce right now too, and we'll see if anybody else has any questions, but we're going to do another, we try and do a webinar a month in our series, and so the next one will be in November, and that one will be about end user adoption and really get into some of the tips and tricks around that. And then I think in December, I think I've actually decided today that we may do one that's focused on chief marketing officers working with CIOs inside of their division, like cross-divisionally. So we'll have a couple of those coming up as well. I will be at SharePoint Saturday Sacramento, and I'm also going to be at European SharePoint Conference in Stockholm, and then Simeon's going to be at the Hawaiian user group in November talking about Content Panda. So if you're curious where we'll be in the world, we have an events page that sort of tells you where we'll be, so if you want to see us in person and say hello, you can do that. With that, I don't think we have any other questions. I think that's about it. So yeah, if you want to get a hold of us, it's sales@contentpanda.com. And those of you on the phone, ladies, if you're interested in more information about women in technology, you can check out, I'm up Hedda, Hedda, Hedda Newman on Twitter and all over the place. So just say hello, and if you'd like to get signed up to do some sharing of your stories, we'd love that. So hopefully this has been giving you some inspiration and maybe some new ideas around putting together a NEO, and hopefully a way that you can support all the good training that you may have already given or that you are giving around SharePoint and Office 365 in your organization. Content Panda is really sort of that secret sauce, secret ingredient of giving people support when they need it and where they need it. It's a little bit sort of futuristic. Contextual help or in-context help is something we're really excited about, and we'd like to see pandas all over every piece of software in the world of how you get help and training at your fingertips. So anyway, thank you so much for joining, Simeon. Thank you for that great demo, and we can give you back a little bit of time in your day. And those were the ends of the questions. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, Simeon.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Awesome. Thanks, you guys.